15:05. So yeah. And they would be 11 and 11 minutes for each speakers. I just thought that I'll let you know. And in case I think that you're running out of the time, that I'm going to ring this bell.
Thank you, Sarita. That's perfect. I don't mind the bell at all.
Perfect. That's great. A big welcome to WEF Women Economic Forum 2020. This is the first time we are going online, and this might be one of our biggest online summit ever. We have two beautiful experts on board, Miss Yvonne Witter and Miss Julie Parker, who are going to share their expert opinion on the importance and impact of conscious leadership. Let me give you a quick introduction of our first speaker, who is a coach, consultant, and a cancer survivor. She's a Southwark Businesswoman of the year 2009. Our second speaker, Ms. Julie Parker, the founder of Beautiful You Coaching Academy, where she passionately trains heart-centered people to become life coaches. She is a great speaker. Let's welcome both these speakers who are going to speak for 11 minutes each, and we will start our session with our first speaker, Ms. Yvonne Witter. Thank you so much, Ms. Yvonne Witter. Now it's over to you.
Hi, greetings everyone, and special thank you to WEF for hosting and all the organizers and moderators. And I have to say, I'm in absolute awe of the technical capabilities of the women who are behind the scenes on this big project. I'm in total awe, it's amazing. So yes, let's 11 minutes can go quite quickly. So let's get on with the importance, the impact of conscious leadership. So conscious leadership is founded on a fairly simple model, but there are many practices that can cultivate consciousness. Each one, from cultivating emotional intelligence to speaking candidly to recognizing that the opposite perspective is equally true, offers a new layer of our development. But the first two commitments are arguably the most fundamental and the best starting point for aspiring conscious leaders, people who want to become conscious leaders. So how about we think about taking radical responsibility for our life circumstances? So what if we ask ourselves, what if I am not at the mercy of what's going on in the world, but rather actively creating my own circumstance? You know, asking yourself, how did I create this situation for myself? Especially now in this COVID crisis, it's very easy to feel powerless and at the mercy of politicians, medics, and scientists with no personal agency at all. You know, we can't do anything about it, it's all happening. The second thing is to be curious and above all else committed to learning. When we hit a conflict, rather than blaming others, we could reflect on our own part in the conflict. Ask ourselves, what if these feelings of annoyance, anger, and pettiness are simply indicators that I can learn from this situation? You know, things happen at work and become angry, we blame the other person, how awful they are, look what they've done. And we could look at that in a different way. You know, how did we create this situation for ourselves? What part did we play in it? So all of a sudden, every seemingly toxic or negative situation is no longer a barrier, but actually the path to self-awareness and personal development. So we kind of move beyond, you know, right and wrong and judgment. Before I practiced conscious leadership, I would find myself in conflict at work and I would take the problems home. I would toss and turn in bed, not sleeping. Negative thoughts filled my head and I was full of blame. It was always somebody else's fault, wasn't it? When we're in this mindset, we enter a fog. We're not conscious. We're kind of unconscious and unable to be truly rational. So in order to learn from a situation, we have to be less judgmental. We have to focus on the learning from the situation, an opportunity to learn and grow and practice conscious leadership. Perhaps the greatest insight is that it's not really about being conscious or unconscious, but because being conscious is not really a destination, and we can't sort of move towards being conscious. It's a constant situation of learning, a commitment that we engage in continuously. And when we do, we open ourselves to a world of possibility, learning, and growth. Greatness is not a function of circumstance either. Greatness is a matter of choice. Jim Collins, the author of From Good to Great, and why some companies make the leap and others don't. And then he talks about great leaders like Ron Chouinard of Patagonia and John McKay of Whole Foods Markets and Tony Heesh of Zappos and so on, and Eric Schmidt of Google. What do they all have in common with the late Anita Roddick of Body Shop? Well, they all made that shift, didn't they? They changed their way of leadership. For them, it wasn't all about the money anymore. They decided to think about the people and the way in which they managed the people and led the people in the company. They realized that sustainable success in today's market is defined by more than short-term profit goals and maximizing shareholder wealth. This is a necessary but sufficient condition to sustainable success in a world that is increasingly becoming sensitive to the negative impacts of producing those profits in the first place. Indeed, it is now a matter of good business for leaders to consider people, profit, and planet as their management imperative. So the shift is even more important today than it has ever been, and yet up to now, few leaders have been able to answer the call. And the ripple effects are huge, the destruction of the planet and so on. So how many companies are still struggling and collapse because of important leadership blind spots that gradually erode opportunities over time? How many companies have failed because their leaders continue to manage in the same way that once made them successful? Many companies are still dominated by numbers, information, and analysis. That makes it much harder to tap into intuition, feelings, and non-linear thinking, the skills that leaders will need to succeed in the future. Leaders really need to get in touch with intuition, feeling, more compassion, more mindfulness, more care, more support to the people. People are the greatest assets in organizations. Without them, it can't function. And people need to be allowed to be their whole selves. They need to bring their whole self to work. And often in the past, historically, people haven't been able to bring their whole selves to work. It's becoming increasingly clear that long-term, a more virtuous pursuit of excellence achieves more in both our personal and professional lives than an unbridled and short-term pursuit of conventional success. As it turns out, maximizing shareholder wealth and profit maximization are not the dominant driving forces in most long-lasting, financially successful companies. The core of leadership is vision. Vision is seeing the potential purpose hidden in the chaos of the moment, but which could bring to birth new possibilities for a person, a company, or a nation. How we do for time? So the conscious leader shows genuine responsibility, integrity, humility, honest communication, win-win negotiation skills, outstanding ability to collaborate with others, greater self-awareness, and high levels of emotional mastery. There are a number of leaders who are now trying to make mindful leadership and corporate cultural evolution a key priority in their organizations. For example, to sharpen their performance, Google and General Mills have created an in-house program in meditation and mindfulness. John Mackay is consciously pursuing a corporate culture geared towards individual self-realization and transformational change. And companies like Zappos are intent on cultivating values such as personal growth, happiness, and learning as essential to achieving lasting business success. So companies are now putting people at the center of their operations and not as disposable elements of the business. Coaching plays a huge role in this kind of change. Anyone who manages people has leadership responsibility, whether they're aware of it or not. Leadership is simply put the way in which a manager manages. An increasing wealth of research shows that the best managers are also great leaders. Therein lies the development opportunity to populate the organization with great leaders, as some top leaders have already urged. So coaching is a key to developing leadership skills and supporting people who manage people to be great leaders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Rita. It is really extremely informative, and I'm sure our audience must have enjoyed and gathered a big knowledge from it. Now to our second speaker, Miss Julie Parker. Audience, please welcome again our second speaker. And over to you, Miss Julie Parker.
Thank you so much, Sarita, and to the Women's Economic Forum for having me here today. And Yvonne, there's some big shoes to fill there. And my heart is really swelling, actually, because in following you and speaking about conscious leadership, there are so many things that you mentioned there that I'm on board with and very, very much believe in as well. What I'm choosing to focus on, everyone, today is actually really taking us back to basics around what it is that conscious leadership is and the impact that I believe that it can have on the planet, and in particular the role that I think women play as conscious leaders. I know that there are a lot of women that will be listening in right now, and I hope that this is something that really helps to make you consider the conscious, aware and incredibly inspirational leader that lives inside all of us. That includes you too. So let's talk about the basics of conscious leadership. Well, to me, conscious leadership begins with awareness, and in particular, awareness of your whole self. We've been sold and told for a very long time now a kind of very narrow and particular, often very masculine version of leadership that only allows us to think about bringing one or two, maybe a couple more aspects of ourselves to the table as leaders. And there are other parts of us that it kind of pushes, oh no, we don't bring that to work, or we don't bring that into our business. That's private, that's separate. But in fact, conscious leadership is about looking at our whole self and what we can learn from that, our shadow side and our light side, our good stuff, our not so good stuff, and how we can learn from those things to bring them into ourselves as leaders and in leadership positions. And so this then follows on to the fact that I believe conscious leadership is also very steeped in authenticity. This is where we allow our truest and most vulnerable self to come forth as a leader, to understand that we cry, we get upset, we have feelings, we have emotions, and that they shouldn't be compartmentalized and shut away from our work. They should, in fact, be embraced and brought into all of our workplaces and businesses and skills and presence as a leader. I want my team to see me as a real human being. You know, I don't want them to put me on a pedestal and think that I'm the only one that has the answers, or that I would never get angry or upset or frustrated about something. I want them to know that I feel those things too. One of my most favourite things about conscious leadership is that it is expansive. This is really one of the things I love about it. And Yvonne alluded and spoke to this in her presentation as well. Conscious leadership is so much more than just a to-do list or a target or profits. It is about seeing the much greater, bigger picture of what a team, what your people, even what you as somebody that is leading yourself is trying to do. It asks us to deepen into our hearts. It asks us to expand our minds and creative thinking so we can really see the bigger picture of what it is that we're trying to achieve through our leadership. Conscious leadership is also, this is a little bit controversial, this next two, but I'm throwing them in there because I think everyone can take it. It's soulful. I really believe that conscious leaders are soulful. They lean into their intuition and their spirit. And this is something that I think women are extraordinary at. We have innate spiritual and intuitive abilities. All of us do. How much we choose to tap into them, of course, is up to us, but they are inherent inside all of us. For thousands of years now, the patriarchy has kind of suppressed that thing within us and said, no, you must follow the numbers. It's black and white. It's only what's written. It's this way. But that intuitive gut feel, that heart feel that we have inside ourselves that so often guides us as mothers, as parents, as sisters, as daughters, can be brought into our leadership and workplaces as well to incredible impact. And that's one of the things I think conscious leadership does very well. That then also leads me to believe that conscious leadership is actually very sacred. It is a sacred undertaking in life because it deeply considers impact and legacy and sanctity of life. Great conscious and sacred leaders deeply consider their impact on other people, the planet, and everything that they touch. How is everything that you touch, that I touch, that we touch in our work going to create something that is better than we found it? This is at the heart of what conscious leadership is all about. And as Yvonne has spoken about before as well, conscious leadership is deeply, deeply people-focused, not target-focused, not profit focused, not outcome focused. It is people focused first. It's holistic, it's heart centered, and it's giving. And the three major impacts that I then see conscious leadership having on the world is that this is when people get seen in their fullness. They get seen in their wholeness, and this makes them better team members, but even more importantly than that, they then become better leaders themselves. Great conscious leaders create great conscious leaders. They don't just take things for themselves, this is the way it's done, it's my way or the highway. They create leaders that rise up themselves. The next thing that great conscious leaders will contribute to collectively as a whole is where all of our businesses, our corporations, our governments, our teams create positive outcomes for everybody. In particular, may I say, those who are most marginalised, those who have the least capacity to be able to really move beyond the many layers of systemic oppressions that they might be experiencing in life. Conscious leaders are absolutely apparent and across that, and looking for ways and solutions that don't tell people what to do in those situations, but instead raise them up so they become absolutely their own voice. There is no such thing as the voiceless to a conscious leader, only those that are consciously not heard. And there is a very, very big difference between those two things. And finally, how then can conscious leaders, if we take all of these things into account, wholeness, soulfulness, sacredness, expansiveness, people focus, then not actually contribute to the collective raising and healing of humanity? They can, they do, and they will. And so my big question to you today, everyone listening, is if you have recognized even a small part of yourself in any of those values of conscious leadership that I've spoken about, that means that either a blossoming or fully blown or still on the path conscious leader exists inside of you. And I just want to encourage you and let you know that the world needs you more now than it ever has. So don't stop walking the path. Keep going. Keep leading into your sacredness, your spirit, your intuition, and your own wholeness, and you'll then inspire so many other people to do the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julie. I must say, what a realistic approach you have got into this topic. Also, I really love the way you have ended the session with an open question. I'm sure our audience would have loved hearing you and Miss Yvonne. So thank you so much, both of you, once again for this informative and enlightening session. And now, on behalf of WEF, I would like to announce the awards to both of you. So first, to Miss Yvonne Witter, I would like to award you as the iconic woman who's creating a better world for all. And to you, Miss Julie, yeah, first we should applause, yay. And now, the award for Miss Julie as the iconic woman creating a better world for all. Thank you so much. What an honor to meet both of you on this platform, and really it was very, very informative, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sarita,
Yvonne.
will we,
thank you, Sarita.
Sarita, will we get the recording?
I have to get back to
posted.
you on this from WEF, because we were also asking and very keen in knowing, you know, can we get the recording, etc. or not. But let me just get back to you on this, and hopefully we get it, because I really know, you know, I understand that we all want to put it on our social media immediately. Very honored there. But lovely to meet both of you, you know, and have a wonderful day ahead. I really don't know what is the time zone at your end right
I know, it's crazy. Was it, Julie, are you in Australia?
I am in Melbourne, Australia. It is now
I'm
8
curious.
p.m. in the 8 o'clock at night.
I'm to know what time it is. What time is it?
It's 8 p.m. 8 p.m.
Well, we'll follow you. It's going to be 3:30. So I have
Thank you.
All right.
This one, so would like to say goodbye. All the best to you both, sweetie.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Julie. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Job done. Lovely.
that happened. And even there's blue in my curtains. Can you see
Correct.
that?
Yeah. And then there's black in your sofa, and then I have that back.
Hi, Sarita.
Hello there. How are you, Zinita? And how are you, Pooja?
Hi, Sarita. Nice to meet you.
Lovely meeting you. I'm so sorry. Actually, I was in another session and I think it took some time.
No problem. We weren't too sure what to do or how to get started, so we were just kind of waiting. So, yeah. Okay. So, so you're going to do an introduction and then we start talking. How does it work?
Yes, definitely. So I think, Pooja, you are the first speaker over here, right?
Okay, great. Yeah.
So again, getting back to the audience, again, welcome to the WEF 2020. And today's topic is mentoring your teens. So we have invited two very renowned speakers, Ms. Pooja Iyer and Ms. Zenita. So our first speaker is going to be Ms. Pooja Iyer, who is a motivational speaker and entrepreneur, and who believes in understanding, identifying, investing, and capitalizing on your strength is a game changer that will take you to the pinnacle of success. So please welcome Pooja Iyer, and over to you, Pooja, now.
Thank you so much, Sarita. Lovely to be here today. So I still remember, when I was about 8 months pregnant, just sitting by the window, looking out into the sunset and trying to imagine how it would actually feel when I'd hold my baby in my arms. And, even before my child was born, there was such an overwhelming feeling of love and connection with that tiny human being growing inside of me. And finally, it was time, and that little baby was in my arms. And on that day, it was not just that my baby was born, a mother was born too. And my life changed forever. And I'm sure that's the case with all of us, right? I think with any other role that we play in our lives, there are pockets of activity and inactivity. But once the parent switch is turned on, it's never really turned off. I mean, just looking at their tiny hands and feet, their cute cheeks, and the baby smell, it just fills you with so much of love your heart could burst. And you're pretty much the center of that baby's universe, right? Because that little baby can't do anything without you. And then the baby grows older and they're still hanging on to every word of yours. And that feeling that you are wholly and completely responsible for that little person is incomparable. And then the baby grows some more. And before you know it, you're knocked off your pedestal. Now you're met with defiance and eye rolls. So what just happened? Who took your sweet baby and replaced them with this sulky teenager? Welcome to teenhood. Now, being a teenager is hard, and being the parent of a teenager can sometimes feel even harder. As teenagers begin to assert their independence and identify themselves, they also have so many behavioral changes that sometimes it seems very bizarre and unpredictable to parents, right? Your little child who couldn't bear to be separated from you now doesn't want to be seen within 20 feet of you. And as parents, this can sometimes be a little hard to endure. Because the truth is, parenting a teenager is never easy. And sometimes you're just going to be exhausted from lying awake at night, worrying about them. Where are they? What are they doing? What are they going to do with their lives? Who are they with? Are they safe? Right? And sometimes you're despairing over failed attempts to communicate. There seem to be endless fights all the time. There's defiance, there's sulkiness, moodiness, rebellion. Did you actually know that to a certain extent, this can all be attributed to the large number of biological changes that are going on in a teenager's body? Okay, and understanding adolescent development can actually help you understand your teen better. So scientifically speaking, what really happens in a teenager's brain, right? Now, the main change that occurs is in the prefrontal cortex. Now, this is the part of the brain that we use to manage emotions, make decisions, reasoning, looking at the consequence of actions, and controlling impulses. Now, this part of the brain is actually restructured during the teenage years. And this remodeling actually kind of starts at the back of the brain and then moves forward, okay? And the prefrontal cortex is remodeled at the end. Now, because this is still developing, teenagers rely on a part of the brain called the amygdala to make decisions and solve problems. But the amygdala is actually associated with strong emotions, impulses, aggression, and instinctive behavior. And hence, we also see the teenagers' responses are also a lot more pronounced. So while sometimes your child is, behaving so well and being so mature, there are other times when they feel really impulsive, right? So it can be attributed to the surge of emotions and the whole development process that's going on in the chain. Because teenagers have brains that are still under construction and still working to grow into an adult brain. So what can we actually do as parents? Now, the most important thing to remember is that you are the adult. Okay, you are your teenager's best role model, and that how you behave is very important. And the most important thing is try not to take it personally. What they're doing is not targeted at you. That's just how they're responding to different situations, right? So how can you mentor and guide your child through this difficult time? My suggestion would be pick your battles. Don't sweat the small stuff. I think for us as parents, we're always walking a fine line between too much and too little. Should we be authoritative? Should we be lenient? Should we be strict? Should we be indulgent? I think what worked best for me is that my yeses meant yes and my no's meant no. Okay. So if as a parent you constantly waver and oscillate and your kid senses your indecision, then they actually get a feeling that you don't really mean what you say. And then they can try to kind of, throw a temper tantrum to get away with whatever it is that they want to do. Okay, because the truth is, at a very large extent, whether your child is a teenager or a toddler, some amount of boundaries actually help. Okay, and with a teenager, I would suggest that if you're looking at enforcing boundaries, you'd rather sit down with them, discuss this, correct? We talk about, okay, if you want to, determine how much phone time you have, screen time, spending time with friends, don't just go and enforce it and say, this is what you have to do and this is not what you have to do. Sit down and have a discussion. Your child is growing into an incredibly sensitive, intelligent adult also. So he or she is also capable of participating in this discussion, okay? Now, what you need to focus on are a couple of key things to improve your interaction with your child. Focus on effort and progress, not just performance. As a society, we're obsessed with performance metrics and key indicators, right? And many a time we take a similar approach to parenting. Now, most of the parents that I work with, correct, they monitor their teenagers' performance very closely, even more so than they monitor their own bank account. Yeah, they're tracking how the teenagers are doing, what are their activities, how they're performing. But when parents sometimes overemphasize performance, teenagers begin to think that only the outcome matters and not the process. But the truth is that parents have to help teenagers understand that life is actually a continuous journey of learning, of improving, of developing, right? Results are very important, but the growth process during that is also very important. And for children or teenagers who believe that only the outcome matters, should they not succeed for some reason, their self-worth gets affected, right? Because they feel that if they don't do well, then they haven't succeeded, they're failures, right? So they become disillusioned and they become unmotivated. So acknowledge the effort that your teenager is putting in. The outcome, yes, of course, is there, but acknowledge the effort going in. And another thing I would like to share is involve your teenager in the process, okay? Many teenagers feel like their opinions don't matter because the parents often end up making the major decisions on their behalf. Now, while you're trying to solve an issue, it's really okay to go up to your teenager and say, okay, what do you think about this, right? How can we address this, right? And even if you don't use that exact phrase, try to think of ways you can involve your teenager. By doing so, you're going to show them that their thoughts and opinions actually matter, right? Now, for instance, some kids may have trouble completing their homework on time. And in response, a parent's natural thing is to kind of scold them or nag them. But maybe impose a ban on watching television or screen time or phone time. But I think a better approach could also be that you sit down with your child and say, what is the problem? Why are you unable to kind of complete this, right? And I wake you up early every morning and you should kind of sit down and do it. And why aren't you? And the child then comes back and says, you know what, mom, can I actually, stay up late in the night? Because in the mornings, I'm just really sleepy and I don't want to do it in the morning, correct? So then when the child was kind of given the option to switch and kind of stay up late a little longer to finish it, the results were a lot better. So sometimes when you involve the child in the decision-making process, the results are actually better. And for me too, so I am a career advisor and I run a company called Aspire, and I work with a large number of students to provide them with career guidance. Now, when students come to me too, it's not that I'm going to say, okay, this is what you need to do or that's what you need to do. See, children nowadays like to take decisions on their own, and they're also growing into adults. They're very capable of taking decisions on their own, correct? So our job as parents, as educators, as mentors and guides for these young children is to set the stage for them, right? Give them the options, let them know what are the pros and cons of different things, and let them feel like they have made the decision, because only then can they kind of stick through and follow through with it. Another thing that I've seen a lot of parents do sometimes is kind of speak negatively about their teenagers in front of other people, you know. Someone's saying, you know, my son's so lazy, I doubt he'll ever succeed. My daughter isn't ambitious enough to accomplish anything. He doesn't have any perseverance. So Sarita, I think I was just muted. Was that?
No, Pooja, please speak clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So rather than saying things to motivate it, sometimes when parents are talking to others, they unconsciously say negative things about their teenagers. And when the teenagers hear this, they kind of imbibe that, you know, unfortunately, because they have a strange way of becoming the kind of person that parents view them as, right? And it's okay to kind of allow your teenagers to make mistakes. Let them experience some discomfort. You know, our natural tendency as a parent is to be protective, to want to kind of safeguard them from whatever they're facing, right? But none of us are perfect, right? A teenager can't be perfect. You and I are not perfect, okay? And a lot of times, by allowing them to go through these experiences is how they will be able to grow, correct? So give them the leeway, let them do something, let them go through the struggle, the disappointment of something not working out, and that will really help shape their personality, okay? And another thing I would suggest is let natural consequences run their course. Now, nagging seems to be an often used tool by a lot of parents, right? For kids to get to clean your room, do your homework, don't stay up late, stop playing with your phone, different things like that, right? So, and all of us at some point or the other tend to do this with our kids. But if the truth be told, nagging never really works. The child just switches off when they hear too much of the same thing being repeated, yeah? So I would suggest that you can actually let things run a natural course. And let me just give you an instance of this. Now, suppose your son comes back from school every day and he takes off his uniform and just throws it on the floor, okay? And you've told him a couple of times, you know, pick it up and put it in the laundry basket. Don't leave it lying on the floor. But that's the same pattern that happens. And so what do you do next, right? The next time you tell him once, and if he doesn't pick it up, you pick it up and put it in the laundry basket. Try not to do that, okay?
Hi, Pooja. I say that you have half a minute to go.
I have half a minute to go. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, so I think this is a topic that we can really talk a lot about. Okay. But I think just broadly looking at it, what teenagers really need from their parents is to be the calm in their storm, to be given a lot of patience, okay, a lot of guidance too, even when they're not really accepting of it. And for us as adults to remember what it was like to really be a teenager and to love them fiercely and unconditionally, even when they're not very lovable. Thank you very much.
Great, Pooja. Lovely to hear such an original speech. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our second speaker, Ms. Janetta Berry, who's the CEO and founder of the Epiphany process. By the way, she has walked the walk and talked the talk when it comes to working through trauma and crisis. Please welcome Ms. Janetta Berry. Janetta, over to you now.
Janetta, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Okay, hold on a moment. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Janetta. Please go ahead. You have 11 minutes to go.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to a family you probably may have heard of. Let's call them Martin and Nicole, and their teenager children, let's say they're Colin and Jenna. And they're a family that's renowned in their community as being a loving family. They're very popular, they're great communicators, they're fun to be with, they're interesting people, and they're noted for doing things well, most things well. And that really, both of them, Martin and Nicole, have made sure that their children don't want for much, that there is always a support, that there's always enough for everything, even to being able to attend private or public schools. And they've really been destined for a bright and successful future. But one day, a few months ago, 13-year-old Jenna approached Nicole and announced that she was feeling anxious and depressed, and that she had felt like this for most of her life. Well, you can imagine what that did for Nicole. It blindsided her. It felt like somebody had stabbed a knife into her and turned it, because both she and everybody around saw Jenna as a happy, smiling child. I mean, okay, sure, there were times when there's a family had to work through some rough patches. This is not saying they were the perfect family that got nothing wrong. She was aware of that, but never did she ever think that this could happen to her. Because in her opinion, this sort of thing happened to other families, and she never dreamed it would be their family dealing with this right now. They prided themselves as being model parents, doing their best to make sure that their children's upbringing was supportive, attending concerts and sports events, and ensuring that any particular talent was uniquely embraced with much confidence. So Nicole and Martin obviously quickly actioned and tried to find help for Jenna. But it appeared that the more they tried to help with the various therapies and methods, the more Jenna started to shut down. And then one day, Jenna dropped an even bigger secret bombshell. She was complaining of a sore throat and not able to eat or swallow, so they took her off to the doctor, who looked down her throat, and then he very seriously sat Jenna down and said to her, the cause of the inflammation, the burning and the scarring in her throat was indicative that she was making herself sick. And it was then that Jenna admitted that she was bulimic. And the thing is that once her secret was out, Jenna just spiraled downhill battling, because one of the things she realized was that she'd lost power, that having this secret happening gave her power. It was the one thing she could control and do perfectly without interference from others. Made her feel really whole and solid. So instead, she resorted to staying in bed and hardly eating or showering. In fact, she felt like she was in a dark black hole, rather like serving an emotional prison sentence. And she just couldn't understand how nothing was helping her. It felt like it was helpless and hopeless, because everything she tried just wasn't working. She was just stuck there. For Martin and Nicole, it felt like they were dealing with a never-ending nightmare. You can imagine they tried to get her to eat and occasionally shower. And Jenna was not wanting to see anyone. She'd locked herself away in her room with the bed sheets over her head. And in fact, they had now come to the point of dealing with the possibility that they might even lose Jenna. My name's Janetta Barry, and after the death of my 16-year-old daughter, as Sarita was saying, I've walked the walk and talked the talk, overcoming my greatest loss. And I've worked with people online all over the world for the past 10 years, assisting them from their day-to-day challenges, and even been flown into assisting victims of terrorist attacks. And I've helped others like Jenna to powerfully manage and balance out their anxiety and deep depression. So when Nicole and Martin and Jenna sat with me to work Jenna's challenges through, I was able to guide Jenna to understand and embrace how judgmental and fearful she was of her negative human qualities. In fact, there are nearly 5,000 human qualities listed in the dictionary. I don't know if you knew that. And obviously, approximately half are negative. So if you're judging the negative side of you all the time, it means you're judging half of who you are. Let me tell you a secret, most of us do. So I began to take the first 3 initial steps. There are many others, but these are the first 3 steps with Jenna, which enabled her to take the distraction of extreme and overwhelming thoughts and feelings, which were keeping her locked in a particular limiting story or even stories. And when through these questions, she was able to peel away those distractions, she began to be able to embrace a bigger picture from a place of centered manageability. And to do this, the first step took her to identifying the exact negative qualities that and happenings that she most despised. And then step 2 took her to understand that as much as they didn't serve being negative, she began to see where these negative qualities and situations had given her skills, techniques, new experiences, and unique exposure. And step 3 took her to being able to list and understand that amount of gain in the negative, and that there was loss in the negative, but there was equal amount of gain, and at the same time list the equal amount of loss in the positive qualities she displayed and the circumstances as there were gains in experiencing them. Martin and Nicole then processed in the same way, and within half-hour sessions, all 3 were finding that they were able to hold spontaneous, non-judgmental conversations with each other and the people around them. It's an amazing thing to watch. It's why we call it the epiphany process, because they literally have an epiphany moment through doing this. I've had clients come back to me after one session saying, I can't believe this, Janetta. I hate my great Uncle Johnny. If I've said 2 words to him in my whole lifetime, it's a lot. And this week, I had a half-an-hour conversation speaking from my heart without judgment or fear, just speaking my truth. And you see what many teens battle with in this day and age, in an age where everybody's online and everything is transparent and questionable. They have unanswered questions about the contradictions about themselves and about life, and that leaves them feeling disempowered. And sometimes silently, most of the time they'll put on a brave face. So it leaves them disempowered. Within that dissonant information overload, when they question things, they feel they're not being listened to or not heard or understood. The levels of authentic conversations that they talk about, being able to talk with each other and other circumstances, now that they have processed this, has assisted Jenna and her family to feel authentically listened to and heard in new powerful ways. And Jenna too has found that she now has the tools to listen to hear, and to understand others without that extreme judgment and fear attached to that whole conversation. It's very powerful. And so when these empowering new tools and skills are in place, then mentoring of our teens redirects us and then into a journey and feeling like a feeling of acceptance, appreciation, and spontaneous love for all that equally endorses and challenges them. So, if you're presently dealing with the challenges of a teen, or if you're a teenager listening today, I would love to start with holding a new, authentic conversation with you. Lots of love.
What a lovely speech, Janita. I am so sure that anybody who's listening to you out there must have felt, at some point of time very emotional and must have related to their own incidents or circumstances happening in their own teen lives.
Well,
Now, once
thank
again, thank you so much, both of you, for such a wonderful and enlightening session. I'm sure once again that our viewer must have enjoyed it. So here is the time now to award to both of you beautiful ladies. So on behalf of WEF, I would like to announce the award as the iconic woman creating a better world for all to Miss Pooja Iyer.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Thank you
I
so
don't know
much.
what a moment it is, but
I swear, very, very nice. Thank you so much. Completely unexpected, but thank you. Thank you so much.
okay. No, it's really an honor to have you as well as Ms. Janata. Now is the time for Ms. Janata. Ms. Janata, again, on behalf of WEF, I would like to announce the award again. It's the same award, in fact, as the iconic woman creating a better world for all to Ms. Janata Berry.
Yay.
you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Such an honor and an inspiration to be with you all here today and to share and hear other people's presentations. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's really incredible. I mean, I'm so happy myself to be a part of this platform where you're meeting people from all over the globe, and it's incredible and
Absolutely.
learning and attending all this.
It's a fantastic platform. Literally, like, like they're talking about reaching across borders and interacting with people from around the world. It's a heartening experience.
Amazing.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Sarita. I look forward to meeting you again. And Pooja, you and I are going to have lots of conversations
Yes,
together.
yes, absolutely. Thank you once again, Sarita. Thank you, WEF.
Thank you, Janita, and all the very
Bye-bye.
best. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.